Parish President remarks and reports. Mr. Jewell.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to kind of back up. I know it's been a while since we had our last council meeting, but give you a readout from Tropical Storm Arthur, kind of give you somewhat of a timeline of our operations before, during, and after the storm. Before the storm, obviously, we put out information regarding sandbags. We pumped down our drainage system. We checked our watersheds and canals, did pump station inspections, and we did some public messaging through EOC leading up to it. We did meet with EOC and stated EOC during the duration of the storm. But obviously, coming into it, if we can go to the next slide, coming into it, National Weather Service estimated that St. Charles Parish would receive about 2 to 3 inches of rain, with our worst case scenario of rain from 6 to 8 inches of rain starting Wednesday through Saturday. Instead, as you all know now, we received that worst case scenario within about 3 hours of the storm. In addition to that, we received 8 tornado warnings, which were issued between 2:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. on the morning of June 18th, along with flash flood and severe thunderstorm warnings. And we were thankful that there was no damage due to tornadic activity that was seen in some of the other parishes, especially in Jefferson and Lafourche. You can see on the side there of the screen, those are all the warnings that came through. So when Jason talks about 2025 having 1 tornado warning to having 8 of them in about a 3.5 hour period, it was definitely a wild ride that night. And I want to commend all of our employees who were out during all of that time, responding to resident complaints and any issues that came up. All right, we'll go to the next slide. This was a regional storm. You can see some of the regional rainfall rates and just pictures from other parishes. You can see Kenner there. You can see the airport, Jefferson Parish, and I think one of those might be from St. Tammany as well. There was flooding in Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish as well. So if you go to the next slide, you can see this is a little bit more zoomed in on St. Charles Parish, which shows our rainfall totals. Again, anywhere from 6 to 9 inches, or close to 9 inches going on. Some residents within the parish reported as high as 10.5 inches to me. Obviously, we know there are little pockets inside of these rain events where there is more rain, but on average, you can see that through that purple streak there, that's the rain that we received. Just to put that into perspective, that 8+ inches in 3 hours is well beyond the design capabilities of the parish's drainage system, which is a 10-year drainage system. And to put that into perspective, that 3-hour event for a 10-year system would be 4.81 inches, and we received almost double that in some cases here. So, of course, the rain was falling at a lot faster rate than the culverts in front of our homes or the canals or pump stations could handle, and that did lead to some flooding. We'll go to the next slide there. This is pump station data that shows rainfall totals. As you can see, some of those pump stations aren't registering. We put them all in there, but it looks like we're going to have to go back to some of our pump stations and repair the rain gauges. But you can see there's a lot of consistency based off of that. And I'm sorry, with like 56 pump stations, we were starting to run out of colors to how to color code those. We'll go to the next slide. This just shows the flooding, but want to go back real quick just to show kind of where we are 2025 to 2026. So 2025, from June 1st to July 6th, we saw 3.5 inches of rain. In 2026, in that same time period, 17.3 inches of rain. Oak Street pump station, we saw 12.8 inches of rain last year, 21 inches of rain this year. Destrehan 2, 11.62 inches of rain last year, 20 inches of rain this year. In some portions of the area, of the parish, we were nearing that 100%, that 100-year rainfall event. And that doesn't mean that it can happen or that it happens once every 100 years. It just means it has a 1% chance of happening in any given year. Going to the flooding impact, this is a map of the parish where you can see that flooding. We were trying to do an overlay of that Viper radar or those accumulation totals, but it roughly lines up exactly with that heaviest rain band in the middle of the storm. 106 flooded homes. Again, we have 18,600 structures in the parish. Our goal is to have 0 flooded homes. But we did see flooded homes, and I'm going to tell you, a lot of people reach out to me and say they saw rain in places, or they saw water in their yard when they've never seen it before. I'm going to be right there with you. I saw water in places that I've never seen it before either. It was a lot of rain, and in those situations, when I prepare and I work with Public Works and Jason's office to prepare for a storm, we check our watersheds. We try to make sure everything's as clean as possible. We try to get our residents to check our watersheds and report any issues to us. But when we get into a rainstorm situation like that, people ask me, what do you do? The only thing I can do is get on my knees and pray to God that it stops raining. And that's what I was doing during a portion of this event because, again, our design system is for a 10-year rain event. We did damage assessments. That's where we came up with these structures. And want to just mention that as a part of this too, we're just showing flooded structures here. We have certain designations. We have minor flooding, major flooding, and affected. So if you get water into like a secondary structure or your garage, a non-living portion of your garage, that's considered affected. If you get flooding inside your home, that's considered minor. And if that flooding gets to, about your electrical sockets, that is considered major flooding. We did not have anybody considered major, and all of that data that was collected was sent to the state to be counted for the state's threshold for damage. Okay, we'll go next. This is just our state provided information about contractors, and if you have a contractor repairing your home. We did retroactively declare an emergency when the state was going after individual assistance from the federal government. Again, our damages were counted as a part of that individual assistance or as a part of the total damage assessment threshold. And I'm going to read a note here that we have for after our request from GOSEP for IA. Based on FEMA's review of St. Charles Parish, St. Charles Parish did not qualify for individual assistance. FEMA evaluates IA eligibility using a variety of factors, including the number and severity of damaged residences, the concentration of damage, whether affected homes are insured or uninsured, the financial impact on survivors, and other socioeconomic factors. While St. Charles Parish experienced significant impacts from Tropical Storm Arthur, the parish did not have residences that met FEMA's threshold for major or destroyed damage classifications, which are heavily weighted in the IA eligibility determination. Additionally, FEMA considered the overall impact of the disaster using established evaluation criteria and determined that the damages did not warrant an individual assistance declaration. Initially, it also appeared that neither the state of Louisiana nor St. Charles Parish would meet the damage thresholds to qualify for public assistance. However, following delayed flooding in Point Capee and Avoyles Parish, FEMA extended the incident period for public assistance consideration. The extended incidence period allows additional eligible damages to be included in the statewide assessment. So, in short, that just means any of the money for public assistance, any of the money that the parish spent to prepare for the storm, and money spent during and after the storm, we will be submitting to the federal government to be reimbursed back to us. Also wanted to mention, as kind of like an insult to injury, during the 8 tornado warnings and the 9 inches of rain that fell in 3 hours, we were experiencing a Verizon issue, which was making communication rather tough. I had a hard time communicating and making phone calls to some of the council members as well. So we worked through all that. Any any pump station that we lost communication with, we physically sent somebody out to that pump station to verify operations. And it was an odd thing. We did not lose communication with all pump stations. And just on the note of pump stations, I want to take the opportunity to once again try to educate the public and use this opportunity to explain how our pump stations work. I know we see a lot of times, City of New Orleans, you see right now they had human error at one of their pump stations over this recent weekend rainfall event. Our pump stations are operated off of SCADA and telemetry, so we have the ability to remotely monitor all of our pump stations. And what that means is we can see them in a computer screen at EOC, and during all these events, we have someone physically monitoring those pump stations. Before the event, we pump down. We actually flip a button on SCADA, which brings us down to our emergency levels. Emergency levels are the lowest possible depth that we can pump down our pump stations before we actually start cavitating and damaging our pumps. What we do while we're kind of in emergency mode is as soon as we get above that emergency level, those pumps kick on and try to maintain emergency levels. So instead of pumping down, waiting for the water to come up to our normal start levels, we're pumping down and trying to maintain those emergency levels. In short, we're running the pump stations as aggressively as possible during those rain events and trying to hold that lowest level possible. It's clear from the pump station data that when the rain really started coming down, didn't matter how many pumps were running, because we were just being outpaced by the amount of water getting to those pump stations. So when people say they didn't turn the pumps on or are the pumps running, that is not how our system works, and it's not how it has worked for probably a decade or more. Obviously, we try to make sure that all of the pumps are operational. We do a lot of checks. We've been doing a lot of heavy maintenance to our pump stations. But during storms, you have 56 pump stations, an average of 3 or 4 pumps per station. You have about 200 total individual pumps parish-wide. There are going to be issues. So when we get issues, we can see those issues pop up on our SCADA and telemetry, and we respond accordingly and go and repair those situations. So I'm not going to say that we didn't have our fair share of issues, but we had probably a 97, 98% success rate when it came to all of our pumps being fully operational and running during the duration of the storm. And I'll tell you the worst issue we had was at Ellington Pump Station, where we believe we had a lightning strike. And that forced Ellington Pump Station to come down. It was on generator, so it was under load. It came down. It was down for about 25 minutes until we restarted it back up. Thank God we had Cousins Pump Station there to kind of pull the weight of that. Other than that, looking forward, we'll go to the next slide. We'll talk about some of our projects that are under construction right now. Montz Pump Station number 1, structural components have been completed, including the concrete foundation, pump station structure, permanent sheet pile, wall, the wing walls, levee crown bridge, and piping supports. The project remains on track for an estimated completion date of 2026. We'll go to Montz number 2. At Montz number 2 pumping station, crews have completed the concrete foundation and permanent sheet pile wall. Construction of the levee crown bridge is nearing completion. Work on the piping supports is also progressing. The project is currently estimated to be completed in January of 2027. It has moved up 1 month as far as its completion date. Again, I mentioned at one of our previous council meetings that because all of our materials were ordered at the same time, we have the same contractor building both. That's causing Montz number 2 to catch up to Montz number 1, which we are not complaining about. Looking at the Ormond CN Jack and Bore project, crews have completed the sheet pile installation for the Site 1 receiving pit and partially completed the Site 2 receiving pit while continuing work on the Site 2 jacking pit and other site tasks, including the maintenance of drainage flow. If the schedule holds, the first bore is expected to begin in the second week of August. Once boring starts, CN Railroad requires the work to continue nonstop until the receiving pit is reached. Each 54-inch bore is expected to take 24 hours to complete. In short, they're going to be working through the night to make sure that those get in and get across that railroad track. Okay, Murray Hill and Destrehan Drive. Contractor is working on adjusting the catch basin tops and pouring concrete curbs. The next step will be the concrete walks and drives, head walls and outfalls, mailboxes, concrete trench drain, asphalt mill and overlay, as well as seeding and fertilizing. The project is intended to be completed by September 1st. We'll go over to Primrose Canal on the West Bank. Work to address the conveyance and stabilize the Primrose Canal is ongoing, but we are currently dealing with a stalled crane issue, and so the contractor is expected to get that completed before the end of the summer, and they've been working to get the crane back up and running. They might have actually gotten that done by now. All right, Sugarhouse Road. Wanted to mention this is actually an in-house project, but it's been some time coming, and I think it's a really important one. The Sugarhouse Road Canal takes a tremendous amount of water from Old Luling and drains it to the 80 Ormond pump station. It's a little bit hard to see on the screen, but you can see some pin marks. And at each of those locations was a restriction that was identified actually by Bayer when they completed a drainage study. As a part of their drainage study, they actually installed 2 sluice gates that restricts the flow of their water into the Sugarhouse Road Canal. I know residents have reached out to myself and to Councilwoman Fonseca, who reached out to me to make sure that that sluice gate is closed. We did have an issue with it being open slightly more than it was supposed to be, so we have gone back and corrected that situation and locked it in place. But further down, where you see those 2 pins in the southern side, this is what the canal dropped down to, like 2, which I think, Miles, do you remember what those are, 60-inch or 48-inch culverts?
I believe so, and we upgraded them to much larger box culverts.
So we'll go to the next slide. This is the work, that middle section right there is one that's been completed, and you can see to the left, that's one that's currently under construction, and then all the way to the right, that's at 4th Street in Sugarhouse, and that one has been completed recently. So we are debottlenecking, as Walter would say, several spots in that canal, and the goal of this is to make sure we can keep the Sugarhouse Road Canal within its banks. When it leaves its banks, it runs down Post Street, it runs down, I think, Corville, and a few other streets, which adds water into that neighborhood, which then has to drain, majority of the time, has to drain through the Ellington and Milling Street ditch, which is already overburdened. This council approved a survey, which I think might be completed by now, for us to make an improvement to the outfall leaving the Milling Street ditch, and will give us some good information on how to make an improvement and get that water to the 80 Ormond Canal. 80 Ormond Canal. We're also looking at potentially some retention near the St. Anthony Church that could be also beneficial to us as well. All right. Let's see. Sales tax. Sales taxes were up again in May, just over $280,000 from last May. To date, sales taxes are up 6% higher year over year, or nearly $1.25 million higher for the first 5 months of this year versus 2025. I also want to mention, since we just got out of June, the parish did submit its audit that you guys will be briefed on later this year. So that went out, I think, around June 29th, June 30th, Grant. So that is completed as well. That concludes my report.